Hello and welcome to this special discussion with the men of the moment, as it were. We have Rajesh Gopinathan, Managing Director and CEO, and N.G. Subramaniam, the COO of TCS. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Rajesh, 2 quarters ago, in that somber July morning, you made us sit up by saying that we are at the start of a multi-year tech cycle. And thereafter, the IT stocks have never looked back. If you want to qualify that statement, are you feeling more confident since that July day when you, predicted what has come true?
Lata, I think we are happy that we are on that trajectory. And it is something that, as we said, is a fairly long view on it. So we are executing well on that trajectory. And it is gaining momentum along the lines that we had expected.
Is it looking even better, is what I'm asking?
Yeah. I think obviously the confidence is increasing as it is getting rolling forward on that trajectory. But I would characterize this as where we are today in a slightly broader way. I think the technology agenda and the technology shift that we spoke about is executing along that trajectory. But we are also seeing an increasing shift on the business strategy side and the overall growth and transformation agenda that we are seeing playing out with our customers. And that's an area that we are actually starting to create a foothold in. And that's also something that we are quite excited about.
Okay. Rajesh, despite this very exciting trend that you kind of predicted, the numbers so far have not been, anywhere close to double digit. Of course, this year, you're just about made it flat, a 0.6% growth if you looked at, year-on-year dollar revenues. But even in the past, even in a good year like FY19, it was 9.6, before that 8.6. You haven't quite made it to double digits. Do you think this new wave looks like that is somewhere around the corner?
Lata, we have always said that a sustainable business model that we think is both achievable and what we are more importantly focused on and working towards is to achieve and maintain the double-digit growth. So FY19 was 11.5% on a constant currency basis. There will be some amount of currency variation. FY22 will definitely be double-digit. But the question is, can we maintain it in FY23, 24, etc.? And what are the investments that you are doing today to unlock that sustained growth momentum? And those are the areas that we have shared with you in the past, whether it be the one that you're referring to, which is the cloud opportunity, or the areas like growth and transformation that I'm talking about now. So it's about systematically opening new segments of growth and executing on it on a sustained basis. And long-term stability is what we seek to achieve in the business model.
Okay. All right, I'll just come back to you. I wanted to ask NGS about, specific sectors. If you looked at your breakup, NGS, see, BFSI, Life Sciences, Technology Services together have constituted about 51-52% of your revenue. They are clearly back in the growth trajectory. We can see that all over the world. But the remaining, manufacturing, or even for that matter, retail, more importantly, retail, communications, these are not really, up there. Therefore, where will the growth come from? Will the BFSI, etc., be able to make up for possible shortfalls in retail and manufacturing?
The way to look at Lata is that if you look at the last 2 quarters, we are happy that almost all the markets and all the verticals have registered a sequential growth. And there are opportunities in manufacturing, there are opportunities in communication, media, and telecom, broadcast, as well as in technology services. Right? Naturally, I think banking, financial services, life sciences, healthcare are all registering fantastic turnaround. But the whole hospitality segment, the travel and hospitality areas, I think are still stressed. And they are coming up with the newer ways of investments and then preparing for a post-pandemic era. to that extent, we are happy that we are seeing, the travel side of it. We have signed up a few deals, in the North America as well as in Europe, as well as in Asia, which is actually augurs well for that particular industry as well. So I think the overall economic outlook that we see in the both the emerging and established markets is positive. And the deal momentum that we have in terms of the 9.2 billion that we have registered in the quarter gone by, it's a mixture of large as well as smaller deals. And the kind of opportunities that we see augurs well for the future.
Okay. All right. I will come back to that 9.2 billion because that was the sterling number. Rajesh, now let me quote one of your statements. You said winning share at the cost of legacy consulting organizations is also something you are attempting. Now, that means you're going to take the consulting firms head on. Is that what you meant? And in that case, what will be the investment in terms of people and capacity?
Well, Lata, absolutely. I believe that that's an industry that is ripe for disruption. And it's a business model which was outside in kind of a common cookie cutter solution for multiple customers. We believe is something that we can take on directly with the kind of knowledge base that we have built up in our clients and the cross-domain leverage that we have. And most importantly, the nature of technology progression that we are seeing. So this is a big area of focus. Many of the building blocks we have spoken in the past. We have spoken extensively about our belief in contextual knowledge and what we are doing to harness that contextual knowledge that our consultants have of the customer into more tangible assets and more tangible assets that we can directly weave into our solution footprint. So contextual knowledge is one big area. Another big area is the whole focus on converting R&D into innovation capability.
Yes.
And embedding innovation capability into our customers. So we are approaching it as a very systematic enterprise-wide transformation agenda and quite confident that we'll be able to scale it up along the lines of what we have done in the past.
This is going to be the headline, Rajesh, taking on the legacy consulting organizations and the full game plan you seem to have in your mind. NGS, is this, this will be your problem. It's an execution issue. Do you think it can come at the cost of margins? Because you're talking about big things, innovation, domain knowledge, which has to be harnessed into ideas, into execution. Won't that come at the expense of margins?
The way to look at it is that we have made all the investments that are required already. For example, whether it is an enterprise agile journey that we took, the investments that we made in TCS Spaceport and the studios and digital interactive capabilities that we have built, all that is going to come together to play in the upstream opportunities, right? The growth and transformation opportunities is beyond the traditional opportunities that we are anyway very good at. Whether it is large deals, whether it is large outsourcing operations, or application development, maintenance, support, those kind of opportunities, we are well already strong and we are going to continue to remain strong there. But the kind of upstream opportunities that we see is what is interesting. And as a software engineer, it's like starting my career all over again in terms of it excites me in terms of actually rolling up the sleeves and bringing all the technology elements together to deliver a modern retirement services solution for State Street, or launching a new first digital bank in Israel in under 9 months of time, right? Oh. Or in a Swiss private bank where they want to completely tokenize everything and then come up with a crypto private bank in under a year, right? These are the kind of opportunities which require multiple skill sets that we have developed, all the investment that we have developed coming together. And these come at a much better price point and price leverage. And that should actually contribute to the margins.
Okay. This is sterling stuff that you're giving us in terms of the examples of the kind of orders. Looks like a paradigm shift to me, at least. Rajesh, a more mundane question, but not really all that mundane. These kinds of orders are all over the place. I mean, crypto is like in so many countries. token banks, payment systems. It's all over the place, this kind of digitization. Will there not be a war for talent? And will that impinge on margins?
That is at the heart of the differentiated business model that you're bringing to the fore. We have, first of all, we have the world's largest population of engineering talent, which has been very consistent and has got a very high tenure with the world's leading organizations. So remember that our teams have been working very steadily in our client organization for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And that knowledge, respecting that knowledge and harnessing that knowledge is at the core of the transformation that we're talking about. And we have invested in building systems and more importantly, in having the right culture and the philosophy to retain and harvest this talent and the knowledge. And therefore, we believe that a lot of this will come through organic leverage of the knowledge and talent base that we have. And we will supplement it as required externally in specific areas where we can seamlessly bring it in.
Okay. Well, then you tell me, what are the pockets of weakness, Rajesh?
It's not a pocket of weakness. It is pockets of opportunity that we see. For example, if you look at newer regulations in the combination of crypto and payment systems. Now, specific knowledge on certain policy aspects of it. These are very, very specialized knowledge that we can bring forward, either acquire it through recruiting such people, or even more better partner with more boutique organizations to supplement that knowledge base. Areas like even in horizontal areas, for example, HR transformation is a very huge space that we believe, where what we have done internally is of great interest to many of the client organizations. But supplementing that with very, very specialized boutique capabilities on the front end of that HR transformation and linking it together to create that holistic solution set is at the heart of what we are attempting. So whether you go horizontal or you go vertical, we believe that this model, which is unique and refreshing to and being accepted increasingly by our customers, is something that is giving us a lot of confidence, and we are quite excited about it.
Okay, you know, Rajesh, Reema is clearing her throat. She's dying to put some questions. But let me put just one more question to you. Margins. The markets fear that once travel comes back, etc., again, maintaining this 26 plus, in fact, very close to 27, is going to be tough. You tell us, is work from home now so completely in your DNA that increasing numbers, you will recruit 20,000, 40,000 in the years to come, you will still be able to maintain this 26, 27% margins?
No, absolutely. Let me put it this way. Our approach to margins, and we have spoken about it many times, and I'll never tire of repeating it. The approach of sustainable margin is to drive innovative solutions and be the leaders in capturing that. Even if you think about the space of large deals, if you look back 10 years back, we were the pioneers in stitching together large deals. We were the ones who pulled together multiple service lines and the risk model of it, and actually went out and created those large deals. When you are the pioneer, there is very little competition, and you are able to command a price premium, and that supports the margin in the overall portfolio front. Over time, of course, the competitive set widens. So if you look today, large deals is no longer a highly differentiated space. There are much more competitive activity, and therefore the attractiveness and the margin profile of that as a product offering erodes. But the newer areas that we speak about, like what we are doing on the cloud area, or what we are speaking about now on the growth and transformation area, these are new ground that we are breaking. And like NG has said, these are very rich spaces, with very high price points available, which will support the margin profile. So the margin confidence that we have is not a static view. It is a confidence in our ability to constantly innovate and constantly move the solution set into newer and newer areas that supports our overall value creation opportunity and the aspiration that we have.
Raji, just one question, and which is a data point which is linked to your order wins. What is the current outsourcing opportunity, and by how much has it gone up compared to pre-COVID levels? Is it up 1.5 times? Is it up 2 times? Any numbers or any opportunity size that you can share for the industry?
We are not breaking that up, Rima, so I don't have a specific number to share with you. But what I'll give you is that typically outsourcing tends to be large deals. And the composition of the large deal in this order book that we have reported in this quarter is actually not very high. The largest deal out there is in the range of $500 million. And if you compare that to, let's say, 4 quarters back when we reported 8.9 billion, the largest deal in that was $2 billion. So this is a much more broad-based TCV that we see with a combination of both large and small, but no single preponderance of one large deal that is swinging it. And but whether that will be a trend or not, difficult to say. We are positioning ourselves to participate on both sides. So one is a traditional area of strength, which we have been pioneers and leaders on. But the other, the growth and transformation by its nature, will be smaller deals, and where we are early movers, and we are quite excited about that opportunity as well.
Okay. Rajesh, NGS, thank you very much for sparing time for us. From me and Rima, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to do a break and we'll come back with Milind and Ramki.
Welcome back. We're now joined by the CFO of TCS, V. Ramakrishnan, and the Chief Human Resources Officer, Milind Lakkad. Gentlemen, morning, and thanks so much for joining in. And Ramki, before we get talking about numbers, we just want to say, we're going to miss you. You're going to be retiring very soon. It's been an illustrious 2 decades with TCS, last 5 years at the helm as the CFO, and you're going to leave big shoes to fill. So it's been a pleasure interacting with you over the last few quarters. But we've got numbers to pour over. So Ramki, straight away to you. On the margins, how confident are you about margins sustaining at these levels, given supply side pressures? At some point, discretionary spend like travel will also resume.
Thank you, Rima. Thank you for your opening compliments. Coming to the numbers, see, I think the margin resilience has been part of our objectives, and whatever we have been doing in the past several quarters have been in that direction. I think the number one is growth on a steady keel. I think that itself helps in margins, and we have demonstrated that in the recent past very clearly. Second is, of course, you are right to some extent. Some of these spend which has not been happening will come back, but the pace at which and the time in which it comes, we cannot predict with all the uncertainty going on the pandemic right now. But some of it will come back. In the immediate short term, we will have a little bit of an impact because of the salary hikes which we have already announced effective April. So in the first quarter, we will see some impact, but in the subsequent quarters, we normally get that back. Exchange currency, of course, is a well-known factor. But other than that, I think the improvement, the critical thing is the benefit that technology is bringing in the growth and transformation agendas of our customers, and where we are able to make that impact. And the more we realize the full value for the potential of the benefits which we are bringing to the customer, we should be able to sustain and maintain this margin resilience as well as leadership.
So in this multi-year tech cycle that we are in the midst, can we look at margins in this 26 to 28% band that you've always been calling out?
I think we have been very focused on that, and for several years, despite some level of skepticism in market observers, I think we have demonstrated time and again that we are very in that range, sometimes very close to the lower end, but we have been also within that. So I don't see any reason, because structurally we believe that is the margin band in which we should be able to operate and comfortably. without compromising on the investments which we need to make for not only our future growth and also to keep ourselves ahead in a competitive environment as well as with customers. So I think we are very confident of that, Rima.
Okay. Let me get Milind into the conversation. Milind, first up, this 19,400 hiring, very impressive number. Is this some pent-up hiring or is this the new normal?
Lata, it is something which we plan for the year. Means campus hiring happens for the year. We already planned and did and offered for the next year for this FY22 as well. So this comes this is second nature for us. And the point about hiring laterals from the market, it again depends on the market situation, business situation, and we basically organic talent development internally. All of these factors play together, and we basically hire from the market. So demand has been good. We have been able successfully. We've been able to drive all these levers together, and hence big numbers. And we continue to do that going forward as well.
Okay, what I was trying to get from you is this is like almost 4% of your existing force, 488,000. You've hired 4%. Should we expect that or even more in coming years?
Lata, like I told you, that 40,000 is what trainees we got in last year. We will actually get same or even a little more than that in the coming year.
Okay.
And all the lateral hiring which happens from the market will add to that.
Okay.
So these numbers are not extraordinary from our standpoint.
Right.
These will come. Yes.
Okay. Well, let me ask Ramki. When we last met in one of our risk awards, and I asked you what will be the big take home from the period of lockdown, you said trust. That will stay with us. Until now, we always thought people work only when they are in the line of sight of their superiors. But now we know that people work even if the superiors are not watching. Will that stay? And if that stays work from home, will these margins continue to improve, or definitely if this is this the base of the margins?
See, I think the bedrock for trust is the basic value systems which you have as an organization have imbibed, and also from the tradition of the Tata Group, and you are able to inculcate that with your employees and associates. So that is a very important thing. Value system, it says that we care. As pandemic rolled out, and Milind and his team have done a phenomenal job in terms of engaging with our employees as well as to take care of their health and well-being, and continue to do that. And just as we thought to some extent the pandemic is under control and behind us, and we have this second wave upon us. So the trust comes in from that ethos. And linking it to you talked about the margins, etc. I think these are a little bit disconnected, but the essential question is, can you maintain the same level of productivity, your utilization, your engagement with the customers, customer satisfaction, etc. If we continue in this mode where a large part of the work is done remotely and in virtual mode, I think the answer is yes, because it has demonstrated in the last 12, 13 months, it has demonstrated that we can not only engage with new customers, bring them on board, but with our existing set of customers, the level of trust and confidence they have in the delivery model, being able to, and in fact, during these periods, our customer satisfaction has gone up, our employee satisfaction has gone up. So which is a clear demonstration of, I think goes back to that value system. I may be overstating it, but I think it is appropriate.
Absolutely. Milind, can you tell us the number? What will be the quantum of wage hikes that you've announced for this April period? And will it be similar to the last 2 to 3 years?
First of all, yes, the answer is yes. It will be similar to last 2 to 3 years. Rima, just to let you know that we just given wage hikes in October, and we are going to give it again, and numbers will be similar to what we given last year.
Okay, similar to the past. Milind, there were also reports that digital talent is in high demand right now, and therefore that can pose supply side challenges. Could you share your thoughts on it? And attrition for you is at 7.2%. How much higher can it go? Because, you know, when you look at the Accenture commentary, they're talking about attrition going back to pre-COVID levels.
So on the digital talent, Rima, I think we've been saying always been saying that our one of the key strategy for TCS has been organic talent development, or that goes on, you know, and that's basically the top three, you know, strategies for one of the top three strategy for TCS, and that is basically done keeping midterm and keeping long term both. And understanding the customer needs and driving internal talent development actually is a core aspect of our business. So that goes on, and we obviously also look into where does this industry go in 3 years from now, and what is that we need to do now to align with that. Both of these factors are playing in a big way to meet the talent needs of today and
Milind,
tomorrow.
1 minute. Milind, if I may intervene, I think what Rima is driving at is that won't this impact margins if everybody is going to rush for this talent because there is a business boom? If because of that attrition rises and you have to give better wages to attract talent, is there not a danger of a higher wage bill and therefore lower margins?
So, Lata, I think I'll come back to that point. Internal talent development means we actually move people up. We actually have programs where we are moving people up and actually also driving linking learning to their careers. So all of that together actually balances things out for us. You know, even from a financial standpoint. Yes, we will take talent. We have to get talent from outside, sometimes at a premium based on the skills. But a lot of it gets developed. Most of it gets developed internally, and there also we are actually also, you know, increasing compensation of people based on the way they perform on the job and how fast they are learning. But overall, like Ramki said, you know, it all balances. The margin gets balanced out with growth. If the growth is coming in, all of these factors get balanced out in a big way.
Okay, Ramki, a final question to you. I'm again harping on margins because it looks like the rupee is in a new bracket now. We may not see 72 that soon. That could be betting margins. And why I raise the WFH issue of trust. You know, if you continue to have WFH for larger and larger, every year you get in another 20, 40,000 people, you don't have to look that much for space. That's why I'm asking you if margins are on a sounder footing going forward.
On the first part on the currency, currency depreciation is part of our model, right? So because it's essentially a difference in the inflation between, say, India and certain other countries where bulk of our deliveries happen typically, and the inflation in the countries where the customers are located, where the inflation is probably 1/3 of what it is in India and a few other countries where we have a large population, a large segment of the workforce which is engaged in delivery. So this exchange difference is what is reflected in the currency. So currency depreciation is intrinsic to our model. On the WFH, see, we will have a hybrid model. See, it will not continue to remain at 95%, etc., which is currently there, 95 or even more, which is currently there. We have stated very publicly saying that we will have a 25 by 25 model in the years, the coming years, where at any point of time, at least 25% of the time is what someone at an individual level will spend in an office, or 25% of the workforce will be in an office. So we will have that situation. Some level of calibration of physical workspaces will definitely be there, Lata, but today it is a little early. At this point of time, we are not doing anything in that regard. We are probably not adding new spaces now, obviously, but we are also not doing anything with the existing space. We will watch this situation. There will be opportunities for repurposing some of them. We will continue to do that. and we will see how it goes.
Okay.
But even if you see overall from our own entire cost structure, our people-related cost is a significant number, right? All these other physical assets, etc., are a smaller percentage of our overall cost structure. And whatever benefit we get there, we will invest it back.
Okay. All right. Got that. Out of time. Ramki and Milind, thank you very much for joining us. From me, Rima, and the entire team, all the very best.